Life.Church created this podcast because we all need healthy conversations with real people. So this podcast is here to help you start conversations with your life group, friends, and family. Now, on to the show.
Welcome to the You've Heard It Said podcast. This is Allie.
And this is Jason.
And today we're talking about regret and what to do with it.
And I'm actually excited about this topic because I think regret is like very misunderstood.
Okay.
So I'm that person who has spent like a third of my entire life trying to avoid regret. And, you know, like if I never do anything I regret and I do everything right and I avoid all mistakes, then I'll have a good life, you know, kind of that kind of thinking. And what I'm learning, and like seriously right in the middle of learning, is that regret has a lot more to offer you than just simply trying to avoid it.
Okay. I'm interested because when I hear the word regret, alarm bells in my head immediately start going off and it just sounds like failure.
Yep.
And I hate failure. I am very perfectionistic. So failure is something I try to avoid at all costs.
Perfect. I have something that you're going to love.
Oh, come on.
I made up another game.
I think I already regret asking you to write the outline for this episode.
Okay, good joke. Okay, so the game is called Instant Regret.
No, I have like a stomachache just thinking about where this is going.
And I just describe a situation, and then you have like, I don't know, like 0 seconds or a couple seconds to come up with the most regrettable thing that you could do in that situation.
No, I think that the most regrettable thing I could do is agree to play this game with you, especially because you're probably just going to change the rules in the middle of it anyways. So I think we should just skip the game and introduce our guest.
Okay, you're right. So I met today's guest, Clay Steves, for coffee a couple years ago, and like 30 minutes in, I knew that I needed to ask him to tell his story as part of some videos that we were working on for men. And that series is called Wildlife. You can actually find it on the Life.Church website or in the app. And since then, we've asked Clay for help with like a bunch of other stuff, including talking to him for this week's episode.
Yeah. Clay is the founder and CEO of Habakkuk, which is a medical company that provides surgeons with all of the devices and implants and hardware that they use to replace joints and fix broken bones. And he and his wife, Kirsten, have a really big, beautiful family today. But Clay's story was full of a lot of pain for a while. And so I think you're going to be really glad that you hear it.
And here's something that I definitely don't regret. At the end of our interview, I asked Clay if he actually appeared as an extra in one of my all-time favorite shows. Hey, Clay, we're really thankful that you take time out of what I know is going to be a really full day for you. So just wanted to say thanks for getting on this call with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and you're welcome. Honored to be here.
Can you just describe for me what a day in your life and family might have looked like when you were like a 9-year-old boy?
A small family unit, my mom, my dad, my big sister, and I. And I would just say a very driven family. They're all firstborns, for the record. We're actually all firstborns because I'm adopted and I was a firstborn as well. So you just have this very close-knit family, but very, I would say, achieving and active family.
So you mentioned being adopted. Is that something you would have known when you were 9?
Yeah, I actually can't remember being told. Fun story. My mama used to always say, "Honey, you didn't come from my tummy. You came from my heart." And I just always loved that.
So yeah. I don't know how old you are right now. I'm not going to try to guess, but but walk me through a day in your life and family and work today.
I'm 38 there. We'll just put it on the table. I'm not worried about it. I'm not scared of it. So been married for just over 15 years to my wife, Kirsten. We have 5 kiddos. 4 are bio and 1 is adopted. They range from 13 down to 4. So our house is a circus, to answer the question. Owning a small business, being self-employed, having 5 kiddos, trying to stay plugged in, trying to navigate incessant volatility and changes and everything. It's loud. There's the word I want to look for. That's the thing I think my wife and I often, when we get to quiet places, we'll be like, holy smokes, our kids are loud. And it's mostly my fault. I know that because I'm really loud. I would say we have found a rhythm. That's probably the best way I'd say it. We have found an efficiency and a rhythm. My wife has a gift at systems. She has a gift at taking chaos into order, and it creates a lot of space for us. So just, that's how I would describe our house. Yeah.
So part of the reason I started you at 9 years old is because I've got a 9-year-old kid. His name is Roy. And a couple of weeks ago, we finished dinner and I'm like, boys, do you want to go skateboarding? Okay. So Roy and his brother Paul, they're running through the house, grabbing helmets, grabbing pads, just like tearing through the house, getting ready to go skateboarding. We get into the car. Paul realizes he's forgotten something. Roy, my 9-year-old, is like, well, if Paul's going to go get something, I'm going to go get something. So he's got his helmet on. He's got his knee pads on. He's in the middle of putting on his wrist guards. He runs out of the car. He jumps over this planter like 3 feet in the air. His foot grazes it. And he falls face forward into a concrete step and breaks his radius and his ulna. Those are the bones in your forearm for everybody listening. And we're on our way to the hospital. And he goes, Dad, I think I need to stop unnecessarily jumping over things. So I'm telling you this story to ask you a question. Tell me about a time in your life when you did something that you came to really regret.
So one of the remarkable pieces for me as an adoptee is to know where I came from, to know the story that I had 4 names in the first 15 days of my life.
Wow.
I learned that I had 5 younger brothers I never knew about. What I've regretted is that over the years, I'd consistently wanted to tell that story. I've consistently wanted to write it down. I felt this like impulse, this urge, a prompting of the spirit. We could call it a lot of different things, but I just have felt like I'm supposed to put this down. You're supposed to do this and you're supposed to share it. And I never did it. And I've never done it. And I've never did it. And I never did it. And I'd start and then I'd quit. And I'm an ENFP. I'm an Enneagram 7. So I like bursts anyways. Like I start and then I'd see the next squirrel or shiny object and I move on to that. But that for me continued to be a regret.
So Clay, you've got this story boiling inside of you that you want to share.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, are there any other places in your story where regret shows up?
If there's a theme, it would be beauty for ashes. I mean, it would be Isaiah 61 for me. And that's been a consistent theme in my life. I grew up in the church. I didn't like it and it was pretty fake. And when I went to college, I guess I decided to rebel against myself. And I was just like, I hate being fake so much. I'd rather be destructive and be authentic. And of course, that's reckless and it was damaging. But what it was doing is it was deconstructing false posing lies and the masks I'd built over the years. I believe it's actually necessary for us. You can do it much healthier than I did. For me in college, it just kind of had a collision of those painful themes in my life. And I ended up for a long season abusing prescription meds to numb that pain. It was destructive. And I ended up failing out of college with 8 hours left.
So take me there. What do you feel like when you've been dealing with this addiction and it leads to failing out of college with 8 hours left?
I felt perpetually on the verge of being exposed.
Exposed for what?
A fraud, a fake, not good enough, not being worth being chosen or picked. Again, I felt unequipped.
You said not being chosen. Tell me what you mean by that.
That's an understanding I've gotten later in life that I've recognized is actually a theme for me. I once was described in college by a good friend as a drug, meaning that I had the ability to engage with people, connect with people, bring them up or bring them down. And I spent most of my life using maybe that for my own personal affirmation to try to get people to pick me. And then the moment anyone picked me, I'd move on to the next and I'd move on to the next because I just needed people. I needed their approval. That goes back to my personal root of perceiving as a child, even though I grew up in a loving home, that I wasn't worth being fought for or chosen at the very beginning, which of course isn't truth. And I know that isn't truth now, but that's the narrative and the lie. So when I talk about not being chosen, that was my fundamental wound from the very, very beginning.
So there's this fear of not being chosen.
Yep.
Do you feel like it would mostly cause you to do things that you regretted or not do things, and then you would regret not doing them?
More consistently and in more seasons, it was that I would not do them. And then I would regret not going the distance. And then I would own that failure as on myself, reaffirming the cycle that I wasn't worth being picked because I couldn't even finish this thing, and et cetera. And so I think that was the narrative or the loop that I would consistently own internally.
Can you just fill in some more of the story for me? Like, how do you get from 8 credit hours away from finishing school, dropping out, dealing with addiction, to father of 5, running a business? Like, get me from there to here.
Grace. That's the grace from a lot of people, and of course from God. I really threw up a wall there and tried to ignore that past. I tried to start over, and I'm going to say I almost went back to like what the world expected of me. Kirsten and I got married. We started a family. Through my identity and my effort into work, I was blessed to be very successful in orthopedic device sales early on. And I get to November of 2010, and it was actually the Kazone experience.
So Kazone is this thing where people at our church come and you look at everything that's happened in your life. It's literally all there in front of you on sticky notes.
Absolutely. And it was that personal experiences exercise with the Post-it notes, and they've got different colors, and you're supposed to write about different events in your life. One color is positive events and one color is negative events. And I can tell you, in my negative event color that night, it was magenta. And I had a lot of magenta on my personal experiences. And it's people I'd lied to, it's failing out of college, it's abusing the meds, all these elements. And this is the first time in my life, like I felt like that prompting. I kind of just said like a Holy Spirit urge that was like, go back to school. And I can remember my initial response was like, oh, absolutely not. Nope, I'm good. I finally got this back together, right? Like we're making money more than we ever thought we would. We've got 2 kids. We're married. Like, this is great. No. I don't need this. And it was like, go back to school. And so, I went home that night and just kind of unpacked it with Kirsten. And we prayed about it. And I was like, oh, okay. So the next year, which was all of 2011, I would literally like cover surgeries during the day because that's what I was doing as an orthopedic device rep. So I'd be in surgery all day. Then you go home and you try to help with dinner and you get the kids in the bath and you get them in bed. And then I'm up at night reading about history and American literature. It was hard. It was awful, but I was making the right choice. And so at the end of that year, 2011, I actually graduated. It was December 17th. And so, I'm down there with a bunch of 22-year-old kids, and I'm this old guy with kids now. And what I didn't know is actually it was the day before. The very day before was when my birth mother had placed the letter in the mail to try to find me.
Wait. The day before you graduate, your birth mother writes you a letter to try to find you?
She actually wrote it to my parents. God was weaving and orchestrating so critically.
Yeah.
Because she wrote the letter to my parents and she basically just said to them, thank you. She's like, I believe you're the, parents of the child I placed for adoption. The work you've done is the work of God. Like, she just was effusive. And the reason I say that is my failure out of college that season was incredibly hard on my adoptive family. Go back to 9-year-old me, go back to achieving family, go back to that type A winning, et cetera. And so if God doesn't work the process and guide me, and if we don't make those choices, and if I don't go through that season I'm going to say close it, to heal it tangibly here on earth, when that letter gets to my mom and dad, and my dad's even said this to me, like he was like, I don't know that I could have given it to you. I'd have been too concerned about you not being able to handle it. But he felt a freedom. He felt that he could trust God and trust me with it. And so then he, of course, shared the letter with me. And that started the journey to where I then began to find out about my story, where I came from, my brothers that I never knew, who, by the way, at that time also didn't know I existed. Through that same season, we had begun feeling the stirring to foster. And then now, as I'm beginning my journey into being reunified and understanding grafted and blended families, like Kirsten and I began, as we met my birth mother and began to reunify with my biological family, we also began the process to foster ourselves. And so it was, I'm honestly going to say, remember earlier I described in college that breaking down?
Yeah.
It was a breaking down season again. But this time, the breaking down didn't destroy me and us. It actually, I would take us to that foundational life-giving place because it was done in community. It was done in God's calling.
Kind of like a reconstruction.
I would say it was a deconstruction to rebuild.
Okay.
It was a hard season. It was dark, but we were being taken through. We were being taken through the valley.
And void. Dark and formless and void.
Yeah. I mean, and again, these are the themes. And when we talk about beauty for ashes, there also have to be ashes for the beauty to come. Like my wife, while we're going through all this, while we're fostering another family's sweet son, my wife gets pregnant and has a miscarriage. Walk through the challenges of that, right? It was a very painful season, but it was a season where we learned the difference between unhealthy pain and healthy pain. And
what is the difference between unhealthy pain and healthy pain? Hey, it's Jason. And like I said earlier, Clay and I got together with 5 other guys who asked off work and rented a house for a few days to work through our questions with cameras rolling. Like, what do we do about our addictions? And why does life feel like an uphill approval treadmill all the time? And how can we really know God? Whether you're a guy or you just want to understand us, you're going to like everything you find at www.Life.Church/wildlife. All right, back to the show.
Healthy pain produces more life and fruit after. Unhealthy pain does not. That's that verse in John, right? That's the beauty where he talks about the branches that don't produce life, they're dead, they're cut away. Branches that are producing life are cut back so that they can produce more. They're pruned, right? And so the reality is both branches are cut, by the way. There's pain in both of them, but only one of them produces fruit. Only one of them produces more life. And for the record, it's the maturity maybe the process we have to go through is discerning which is the right pain to stay in and which is the other pain to avoid. When we can't discern that, when we can't see the difference, we'll stay in the wrong one or we won't stay in the right one.
Mm. So and then you end up regretting.
Yeah, bring it back at me. Come on, Jason. Yeah, no, that's it. You're right.
Okay.
Yes.
So you said we might stay in the wrong pain or what did you say?
Well, I said, when we can't discern the difference between the two, what we'll do is we'll avoid the good pain because we believe it to be the unhealthy pain that we've experienced before. And so the good that we need to go through, the pruning, we won't allow ourselves to endure. We won't allow ourselves to stay in that moment. And so we'll avoid it because of our misapplication of what pain is. Yeah.
And we might avoid it with addictions or just by simply avoiding it, like not deciding to ask for the promotion or ask someone out. Like so many different ways we could avoid it.
We all do with busyness or with staying connected to our phones or technology all the time or with Netflix, like binge watch, like we all numb to avoid those or we just don't have the conversation that we're supposed to have. So we avoid that person. Like we all do it in a different way. I think it manifests in a different way, and some of them are more sinister and subtle than others. Yeah.
So Roy, my 9-year-old, he gets his cast off yesterday.
Yes.
But before he does, he wakes up and he decides to make everyone pancakes.
You can tell him to come to my house. I'll take some pancakes in the morning. Come on.
He brings them out. They're all brown, but they taste amazing. And it turns out that he's filled them full of cocoa powder. So that's another story to ask you a question, because your life looks like this masterpiece, right? And there's all these secret ingredients that make your life amazing. And so I'm just curious, if you had to tell me, like, what are the secret ingredients in your life that make it amazing?
The simplest of things, Jason, and that's prioritizing the right things. And so for me, through trial and error, through messing it up, through hurting people, through hurting myself, like the simplicity of priorities in my life, Jesus, my family, orthopedics, and adoption reunification. Like those are my 4 priorities. I know those, they're in the right order. For Kirsten and I, it's structuring our life so that those priorities stay in the correct place. We prioritize church. We prioritize giving and serving in the church. We prioritize our relationship above all others in the household. And then I think just this principle of less is more. I mean, for me, I have learned, and this applies to everybody, a majority of what we do doesn't make the greatest impact. like a majority of what we do is movement and action. And so if we can just slow down and learn, like, well, how do I kind of prioritize my relationship with God? I want to do that the right way, staying connected with him. I think the other thing to do when you're prioritizing relationships is to find people who have gone ahead of you and just begin to, one, observe them, right? And observe not maybe the external stuff, but maybe the subtle things they do. Don't overthink. You don't have to ask somebody to mentor you for years. Just like ask them to coffee and show up prepared and ask questions about how they structure their day, about how they think about things. So try to get to what they understand, not just what they know. And so I think prioritizing those, I'm going to say cut out a lot of the noise. And then you just have to begin to have courage to say, yeah, you know what? 10 people are doing this. I'm not going to do that because I don't need to spend all of my time on this, or I don't need to go into debt to buy all this stuff. I can just actually be patient and play the long game. Say you're in your 20s, talk to you in your mid 30s and say, what would that person say to me? Like, what decision would they want me to make right now to be able to matter then? Because I think that life will continually ask you to say yes and no. If you can just make some single decisions that eliminate hundreds of other small decisions, it will make your ability to think, to see, to be present, to not feel rushed exponentially more fruitful.
I hear you saying some of the secret ingredients are slowing down enough to figure out what really matters in your life. And some of the ways to do that are by spending time with people who've lived a little bit longer than you.
Yep.
By getting close enough to the people around you to hear a little bit more about yourself and who you are and what they need from you and what you still need from God. And then actually looking around to see, like, do I really need to repeat all the same mistakes or successes that everyone else is repeating in the world? Or is there something specific for me to spend my life and my time on?
Yeah. The most important of all of them, the keystone habit for me has just been staying connected daily in the Word. And so that single discipline, like if there's just one thing, I would say that, like if you're going to pick one, because it begins to permeate, right? The more you put it on your heart, it will permeate into everything else in your thinking and your life and your decision making and your other relationships. The other person that matters the most is yourself. What I mean by that is it's just an awareness and a grace even with yourself. Like you can't lead yourself or anyone else if you're not in a place of health. And so taking care of yourself, spending time with yourself, and I don't mean like selfishly, but I mean with self-reflection, with self-examination. I am becoming more and more a believer and passionate in that, just that awareness being one of the most critical things towards living out whatever it is that God has created you to do.
So Clay, I'd love to now hear about something that you've done or started recently that if you hadn't have done it, you would have regretted it.
Ever since the start of this story and the story I shared of my upbringing and my challenges that I went through in that deconstruction season, and then of course the grace of Jesus and his impact in my life, and then my reunification with my biological mother, just all these elements, there's this incredible woven story that as I share it with people or I tell parts of it, people are always like, oh, you've got to put that down and share it with others. And I've always communicated it, I've spoken many times, but I've never written it. And I've always felt this prompting, I should do this. Well, I'd never done it and started it and didn't finish and start and get derailed because I'm not an author. And in truth, it was just I get too busy and then I get back into my loop and my narrative and then I'd regret it. And of course, it's woven and intentional, but it was the start of this year that it was the Warrior series. And it was the week where Pastor Craig talked about killing your inner coward. And he just talked about that the warrior's greatest pain is regret.
Okay.
And he kind of leaves with this question of like, if you died today, what's the one thing you'd regret? Huh. And I mean, instant. It would like I didn't even have to think about it. I didn't have to pause. I didn't have to contemplate. It was just bam. Oh, I'd regret never writing this book. This is the year that I sat down and I just wrote my book. And wow. It was actually in September while in quarantine while I had COVID. So again, life brought me opportunity, even maybe when I didn't prioritize it enough. And I was 80% through, and then I was trapped for 14 days, even away from my family.
You wrote the book while you were recovering from coronavirus?
I finished. I didn't write it. Like, it's not my story. It's a story that was given to me. It's a story that's been written on my life. And so I just want to share it so that hopefully it can encourage someone else, whether that's birth mothers, whether that's adoptees, whether it's a family that's considering getting into fostering or adoption or whatever it is, or it's just in their own blended or grafted family, whatever dynamic it is, I want to encourage them and I want to equip them. And I just want to use the story that's been written on my life to do that. So yeah, I don't have that regret anymore because this was the year that message was a catalyst for that single question that just, it rattled me. And it was I think the simplicity and the power of it, of if I died today, what would I regret? And that was it. That was it.
Wow. I've got one last bonus question before you go. So I've watched way too much West Wing in the last few weeks.
Come on now. Yeah, you have.
I heard a rumor that you were once an extra on the West Wing. Is the rumor true?
The rumor is true. It is true. It's a much younger version of me with more hair.
Tell us the season and episode.
Yeah, this season 4. I don't know the episode number, but it's called Guns Not Butter. And you better have a quick eye, and you better be looking for a very young version of me in the background. But yeah, I mean, that was my Hollywood debut and retirement at this point. Yeah, that was it. But hey, I got a paycheck to stand in the background and staple, and I did it with everything I got. And I love it. It's actually my favorite show.
And you have no regrets about it, right?
None.
Amy and I, we have 6 children, 4 daughters and 2 sons. My youngest son is Stephen, and hopefully he's had the better end of the deal because I learned from the mistakes I made with his older brother, Sam. I told you one of the Sam mistakes last week. This is another one that's famous in our family. I don't know if you've ever seen these scooters that kids have. There's a bar that goes up and there's handlebars that go like this, and there's kind of like a skateboard at the bottom. They're made for 14-year-old kids or something. Well, since my son is advanced, and obviously I'm advanced, I got him one when he was 2 years of age. Mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 was we have this really long driveway, and at the end of it that goes toward the house, as it approaches our house, there's a sharp incline that's a great place to go sledding or take a very fast scooter down the hill with a 2-year-old, so I thought. And so I wouldn't put Sam on there by himself. I'm way too smart for that. But I'd get on the back of the scooter, and then he'd put his feet on mine, and then we'd ride down. And we did this. It must have been 50 or 60 successful rides, and it was great. Everybody said, "Don't do this, dangerous." You have no idea. Oh, this is fun. And it was until it wasn't. Sam, on one particular ride, 2 years of age, for whatever reason, decided just to step off of the scooter. And when he did, the momentum of the forward thrust snapped his femur, and you could just hear the crack. And immediately, I was just shamed with the guilt of breaking my son's femur. We stayed the night in the emergency room. They had to operate the next day because they couldn't get to it. And I'm telling you what, it was, Amy will tell you this, it was like every day, and I promise you, it seemed like 3 years. There wasn't a day where Sam wouldn't say, "The scoot broke my leg. The scoot broke my leg. The scoot broke my leg." And so Amy said, "Get rid of that scooter. I don't want to ever see it again." And there was something in me that thought, we need to keep it. So we kept it in the garage. Sam would avoid that thing like it was the devil made of metal. He'd say, "Oh, Scoot gonna get me. Scoot gonna break my leg. Scoot gonna get me." And he would avoid the scooter like this. This went on for years. Poor little kid, traumatized. He was probably 5, maybe 6 years of age. One day I came home, and little Sam, my little warrior, was at the peak of the driveway looking down toward the garage, holding the scooter by his side. I was like, "Whoa there, little buddy. What are you doing?" And he didn't speak. He just kept looking down. I said, wait, what are you doing? He just had this fierce look on his face. I said, "What are you doing?" He just looked and he looked and he looked and he looked. I said, "Hey man, listen to me. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do this." Then the tears started coming down his face. And I said, "Listen, you don't have to do this." He looked up at me and said, "Dad, there are some rides a man's just gotta take." And then he did it. Through the tears and the fear, he took the ride and conquered the scoot. And in that little warrior's mind, he re-engaged in the battle. Gentlemen, do not abandon your post. Do not abandon your post. Listen to me, every warrior's got to fight the fear of failure. Every warrior's greatest fear, that's what it is, failure. Every warrior's greatest fear is failure. But every warrior's greatest pain is regret. Do not regret. Do not disengage. Do not abandon your post.
I can't believe that Pastor Craig put his 2-year-old on one of those scooters and that Sam actually wanted to ride it again.
I actually can believe it because I bought my 2-year-old one of those bikes without pedals, like a balance bike. And my son Roy is already back to unnecessarily jumping over things and skateboarding and everything.
Okay. Well, when I listen to Pastor Craig and Clay's stories, though, it seems like the answer to regret isn't just avoiding it or avoiding mistakes, but allowing them to help you get to know God, get to know yourself a little bit, and then also the people that you're closest to. And then also maybe it's about finding people who have lived a little bit longer than you have and learning from them and some of the things that maybe they regret.
Yes, all of that. And Clay actually was an extra on one of my favorite shows, The West Wing. Okay, but seriously, what you said, like living without regrets and allowing yourself to experience this good kind of pain that Clay talked about. It's not just like sitting in it and being like sad all the time. It's allowing God to kind of deconstruct or remove or refocus you on the right things in your life. So all of this made me go and find 2 Corinthians 7:10. This is the ESV version. It says, "For godly grief produces a repentance that leads to salvation without regret, whereas worldly grief produces death." Okay, so I looked up that word repentance, and it comes from a Greek word, metanoia. Metanoia is like a changing your mind, but like leveled up a few times. It's this idea of feeling a hearty disgust for your old ways while feeling drawn towards a new way. And so one more connection in my mind that's happening is Clay referencing Isaiah 61, his life verse, that idea of God turning your ashes into beauty. It's metanoia. It's the old stuff is gross to you now, and you feel so drawn to this new thing that God is doing. Like that's what that good kind of pain can do in your life.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is that the point is not to just never have regret, because that would probably be impossible.
Right.
But also that kind of perfectionism is unattainable. And it would probably lead to more regret because maybe you would miss out on some things that you could learn from failure, or it might cause you to not even take risks altogether.
Right.
So the point is really to feel and experience godly grief about your mistakes or wrong turns that you've made and invite Jesus to work in people to transform your regret into that kind of repentance. And maybe change your thinking and the way that you live.
So I really like how you said all that. And I think the reason it feels like it's like a lot to say, like it's a mouthful, is because this is a lot to live. You know, it's not just simple. Like this is not an idea that we can button up in like one phrase. And I think what really needs to happen is people need to think about this for themselves. You need to talk about it with people you trust, with your friends, with that mentor figure, with your family and your life group. So we've got a question for you to talk about. What's something you've done or not done in your life that you regret? And how can God turn that experience into something beautiful? I'm so glad you just listened to another episode of You've Heard It Said. So we actually started this podcast because we think when we tell the stories of God changing people's lives, that you might hear something that might change your life. So with that, can you do me a favor? Can you go to iTunes? I know. Can you go to iTunes, leave us a rating, leave us a review? because when more people hear these stories, they might hear something that might change their life. Have a great week.